Hey everyone, how we doing? My name is Tim Pongres and this is Focus on Detailing. Today's video is all about working on something from an era where things were a little simpler, after the Great Depression but before World War II, a time when cars weighed as much as small elephants and lasted twice as long as the hands that made them. In this video, I'll be taking on the task of working on a 1935 Ford Roadster, a challenging yet rewarding job, as it's not very often you get the privilege of working on such a machine. I'll be going over how I got the paintwork prepped for correction, the correction process, and afterwards the protection process, and all the other jobs in between. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
First things first was to not only admire the car, but check over or assess what needs to be done, finding any spots that need the most attention, tools to use, and processes involved. You may have noticed that there were no side windows, so the method that I've become so accustomed to, which would be foaming it down along with a 2-bucket method, couldn't be done. A new tactic had to be undertaken. The answer to this would be using a rinseless wash, specifically Optimum No Rinse Wash and Shine, more commonly known as O&R. But before we delve into this and what it's about, the wheels need to be done first. Since they're at a safe washing distance, it was fine for me to deal with them the normal way. I pressure wash them down to remove the immediate mess, before generously spraying them down with Autoraz Focus on APC. This cleaner will help break down grime across the tyre and rim itself. No need for the more aggressive, dedicated wheel cleaner. Once it was all over it, I immediately began scrubbing down the tyre with a specific tyre brush. This helps to remove that gross brown tyre look, leaving it set for the tyre shine much later on, allowing for a better bond and longer lasting protection. The APC was agitated across the wheel with a soft bristle brush, and wheel woolies with soapy water. Both acted as a lubricant, helping cleaning the wheel the best we can. Lastly, this was all rinsed down from top to bottom. This exact same process was carried out for the rest of them. With older cars like this, less is more with harsh chemicals, purely as a safer option. We want to clean and restore safely with the goal of allowing for easier maintenance. Before I jumped into cleaning the paintwork, it was a good idea to remove the wheel from the back to allow for easier cleaning and for it to be tidied up separately. Now I couldn't just foam up this car, rinse it down and give it the old 2-bucket wash, as you may notice there's no side glass. A different, less water-orientated method needed to be used. Bring in Optimum No Rinse Wash and Shine. With a bucket filled with water, I added the recommended amount, along with a wash mitt, letting it sit for a few minutes. I also created a spray bottle filled with a solution to help increase lubricity. I started by rinsing down a section. This first helps to emulsify the immediate mess. Then, with the wash mitt, I gently wiped across the surface, collecting what was left. This was then dried with a towel and I was all set for the next section or panel. Since this car wasn't overly dirty, this was a fantastic option. Not just because of the open spaces, but it was a warm day, and this would allow for a more targeted, safer clean. The whole car was done in no time and was all set for the more thorough cleaning stage, that being using the clay bar. I moulded the bar, making it more malleable. Then following the same process, rinsed down a section. Using the O&R solution as a lubricant, I gently worked in straight motions, helping to remove and collect heavier bonded contaminants. Although this was likely kept under cover, I could still feel the grubby surface underneath the bar. It had a gritty, grippy sensation in spots. There's many things that could be causing this, but as long as it was leaving the paintwork, then I was happy. You could see just from a few panels how dirty the clay bar was becoming. This was a little more time consuming, but a necessary task to allow for easier work and performance of the products later on. It was now time to bring it into the carport and assess just what was ahead of me, as now I can get a better idea of just how bad the paint was under light. It may look acceptable in the shade, but don't be fooled. What I needed to identify was the best possible cut combo for this first stage. I can have an educated guess, but the best thing to do is to try the least aggressive combo and go from there, till I was happy with the results. But before I get into actually trying it, it's a good idea to tape up the rubbers and plastics. I decided to try Shine Supply's Classic Cut with ShineMate's yellow pad. Applying a few pea-sized dots, I pressed it over the work area. Then with a low speed setting, I spread out the product with fast hand motions. I then turned the speed up of the DA polisher and my hand movements slowed right down. Working in crosshatch motions, I worked over a section, making multiple passes before buffing to see the results. Not bad for a test spot, but we can do better. I stepped it up to Shine Supply's Flat Top, a faster acting cutting compound, and Shine Supply's Green Cutting Pad, their most aggressive foam pad. After I was content with the results, I continued with the same technique over the rest of the car, taking my time before moving on to the next spot and checking my work under the light each time it came to buffing it off, so I knew the results were consistent. I was doing my best to keep the pad flat to the surface, as it should be, but this car had plenty of beveled edges and some to a sharper point. This is where you'd be extra careful to avoid a burn through, as it becomes a high contact point where the pad surface would predominantly not have an even spread and would increase the friction on that specific edge, so just handling with care was vital. This paint seemed really hard. I didn't want to step it up to a microfiber pad, as although it may have been faster, I didn't want to risk damaging the paintwork. So I continued with this method, as it was doing a fantastic job of removing those heavier defects. Once I had completed this stage, I moved on to polishing. This is to help remove potential marring from the cutting stage and bring about a new gloss. I went about this using Shine Supply's Classic Polish, along with ShineMate's Blue Intermediate Pad. This would usually be the final step before I start prepping the paintwork for ceramic coating, but I did actually go over the entire car once more using a finishing polish. Mainly because I had the time to do so, and wanted to get the most out of it, as this was a pretty special car. Shine Supply's finishing polish was the final step for the correcting process, and man did it do a fantastic job of tidying it up to an unbelievably glossy finish. Unfortunately, I didn't get any footage of that stage, but I can tell you that I used Shine Supply's finishing polish along with ShineMate's orange pad. And yes, I like these products and pads. All while this was happening, the interior was getting some attention. Carpet vacuumed, leather cleaned and conditioned, and glass was all tidied up. As for the outside of the glass, that got a dose of Shine Supply's glass polish. Anyone would think they pay me for this video. But if something works well, then why rush to change things up? It was used in circular motions, then buffed to an immaculate finish. Using a damp towel to wipe off the majority before buffing with a separate towel can help too. This could be used across all the chrome in the same fashion. There was plenty of it, and it made all the difference. It was almost time for that juicy layer of ceramic coating. But before we slap it on, it's wise to use an IPA solution or paint cleanser to aid in removing any residual oils from the correcting process. Sometimes a film can be left behind, and that can impinge on the overall performance of the coating. We want to dispose of all that, and to allow for the best possible bond to the car, in turn increasing the durability. A simple spray across the given surface, then wipe with a clean microfiber towel to create an immaculate finish. This was done over every surface to ensure it was as clean as can be. Now the time had come. The hard work had been put in, and now it was time to lock in the goodness. I decided to go with Beadlock Pro from Shine Supply. Applying a small line onto the supplied applicator pad, I worked in straight motions over the selected area. I was using the cross-hatching method to ensure there was even coverage and trying to stick to a panel at a time. You can get a good idea as to where you've been. An oily-like residue will be left behind. Now I waited for just less than a minute, as it was a warmish day and that was all that was needed for the flashing time. I then buffed with one towel and used a second towel to wipe and level the surface. This was done in the exact same way for the rest of the car. Amazing application, speedy process, looked great, and had the satisfaction of knowing it will be lasting potentially years, not months like common protectants. Up to 4 years according to Shine Supply. Everything got a good going over. Glass, wheels, body, chrome, plastic and rubber. Once the car was completely covered, I shifted my focus to the fabric roof. Since it was already cleaned up, I moved straight into protecting that too, using Bowden's own Fabri-Tection. I worked it into the roof. This will help with UV protection and keep it looking great. They say it can last around a year. Not sure about a fully exposed roof in the sun, but this beast does live in a garage, so it should be okay. The tyres were dressed with Focus On tyres, and to save overspray and potentially damaging the protected finish, I sprayed it into a towel then wiped it across. Using that towel, I thoroughly worked it in, changing that dull black to a nice semi-gloss finish. After waiting an hour for beadlock to cure, I added a second layer over everything once more, to increase the thickness of that protective layer and boost the gloss levels. The very last step was to not only look back and admire, but carefully assess the finish to make sure it's how I want it to be. Now I could happily say after 2.5 days of work, it was finally completed. This was a challenging job, not only because it was old and needed extra special care, but new techniques needed to be used to allow for the best possible results. But after all that, it was looking amazing. I was really happy with how it turned out and felt privileged to work on such a car. It'll likely be put back in the garage and brought out on special occasions, but now maintenance will be a whole lot easier. The owner has already spoken to me about the best possible cleaning methods afterwards, so I know it's going to be in good hands. Speaking of the owner, it was now time for collection, and on that note, I think it's time to close up this video. Thank you all for watching and I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to check out the socials, and I'll catch you all later.